It's time to reminisce on 12 of my favorite DIY spring projects from 2024, so let's get started on project number 1. For this project, we're using some Dollar Tree supplies. I have 6 of these thick wood hearts that we're going to be using, and then 1 of these thick wood circles, and then I have 1 wood slice here, but later you're going to need 2, and I think some Dollar Trees have wood slices, but I'm using 2 wood slices, but like I said, later I end up showing you on camera. So first thing I'm going to do is kind of arrange these hearts into like a flower shape. We're going to work with the holes that are already in these. We don't need to fill them. We don't need to do anything like that because it's going to just give us more personality to our rustic flower that we're going for. Right now, I'm just, I placed the circle in the center of the hearts and I'm marking it off because at this point I was going to use wood glue. And I'm marking it so I knew where not to paint on the hearts. I'm using Waverly wax mixed with water, and I'll bring in Debbie's Design Diary DIY chalk paint and white swan. And I'm using the antique wax mixed with water, and of course, like I said, leaving that end open because I was initially going to use wood glue, because what I want to do is I want it obviously to look like a stain, and then when we paint the white swan chalk paint on top and then I distress it, it's going to give us that kind of look of the stain around the edges of the paint, which is what I'm going for. Off camera, I will go ahead and do another wood slice. Remember, we need 2 wood slices, because what I want is another wood slice for the back to finish the back off. All right, once this dries, now I'm coming in. I took that white swan chalk paint and I mixed it with water to make it kind of like a wash. All right, I didn't want it full strength. I do 2 coats of this whitewash, but I didn't want it full strength just so that it's easier to get it off when I'm sanding. I want it to look a little more distressed. I want some of that brown to kind of peep through the white and, that kind of thing. But I really like how this turns out. It's really simple. It's really easy. I love that I left the holes in the hearts, the wood slice, so we don't have to sit and fill them and sand off the wood filler and all that kind of stuff. Why bother with that? Let's make it work for us, right? Little less work, but it's still cute. I'm game. So here I am kind of sanding everything, distressing all of it. I still haven't pulled out that other wood slice yet. I honestly didn't even think about it till near the end, and I'm like, I want to make the backside pretty, and I don't want people to see the backside where the hearts come together because it doesn't look nice. So then later is where I'll bring that other wood slice in. Once this is done, we're going to go ahead. You're going to see my second wood slice. I didn't stain this side because it doesn't matter anyway. You're not going to see it. The back side is stained in distress, and I'm laying my hearts into position here, just kind of right, even in the center of that wood slice. I'm starting out with Beacon Quick Grip glue here. I've got just a tiny bit left in my tube, and I'm just gluing the bottom, part of the heart there, and then laying it on that wood slice, and then I'll lay something heavy on top. This Beacon Quick Grip glue takes about 10 minutes to set, 24 hours to fully cure, but I love it. It just works wonderful. Before I glue the top portion on, I took some kind of medium brown paint here mixed with water, and I'm dipping my fan brush into it. I wipe the excess off, then I tap my fan brush to add some little splatters on the heart to give it a little bit more of a distress. Not too much, just a tiny, it's subtle. Splattered onto the hearts, and then I'll splatter it onto the center pieces as well. I love doing this. It just adds a little something to it. I don't know, and it's easy to do. So my quick grip glue ran out, and now I'm using PowerTac Beacon glue, industrial grade. Works wonderful. I ordered it when I ordered like my 12 bottles of Beacon adhesive. I ordered from the Beacon website, and it worked just as good because I didn't really see a difference. Again, takes 10 minutes to set up, 24 hours to cure. Once I've got the glue on the hearts, I'm going to add the thicker wood piece here. Now, I thought it looked funny with 2 holes in our wood pieces showing, so I chose a wood slice that covered the whole of the thicker wood piece. Once I place that wood slice on, that makes this project complete. We'll take a look at the final results at the end of our next project. Let's move right on into project number 2. So for this wood flower, I'm using these hearts that are on dowels. You're only going to need 5 of them. I have this wood circle in my supply. No holes. You notice these have no holes in them. We're not worried about that. And I also have this thin wood circle that came from somewhere I don't know, so I'm going to use that for the backing, right, like we did on the other one. But like Dollar Tree does have these coasters. It's about the same thickness. It does have a hole. You might want to cover it. I don't know. Or you could use the same thick wood piece you used from, our last flower. Either thing will work, or wood slice front and back, however you want to do it. First thing I want to do is just pull these dowels out of all of the flowers. I could just cut them off and leave the dowels in there, but it doesn't matter because we're covering the back anyway, so you're not going to see the holes in there. I'm using Debbie's Design Diary DIY White Swan chalk paint. Not doing any kind of like Waverly Antique, wax mixed with water stain or anything like that. The last flower I wanted more rustic, right? More kind of natural wood. But this one I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a whimsical look to it, but still be farmhouse. Maybe you might say it's a little bit shabby. I don't know, but either way, I just want to do full paint on this. I do 2 coats, front and back of everything, and then once I'm done painting it, I wasn't going to sand it at all, but then I decided I've got to have some distressing to it. So off camera, I go ahead and distress it. So here everything is all distressed and ready to go. I've got my back piece done. I've got my front piece done. Now what I'm going to do is I want to do a little shading, and I'm going to use just some ink. All right, this is just a pigment ink. I believe I got this at Studio G, Michael's, Joann's. Years ago, I have tons of ink, and I'm just holding the ink pad against the edge of the wood heart there, just on one side. I'm going to do the same side on all of the wood hearts. And then once I ink it, I go in and just do a little spritz with water, and then I use like a little baby wipe to wipe it off. And I do this several times till I get the look that I want. Now, yes, if you're a good painter with shading and you want to, do like paint mixed with water and shade it that way, you can do it that way. Even though I did toll painting and stuff in the past, it's been years, so I'm not like practiced up on doing shading with painting, and so I feel more comfortable just using ink pad. So that's what I'm going with. So I just ink along the edges, spritz it with some water here, wipe it with the baby wipe, do several coats, one-sided heart only, and then I lay the circle in the center of that so I can kind of see how much more shading I might need on the hearts. And then I do the same and I move to the wood circle in the center and do that same process. Now in the center, I do add a little bit of like a brown ink and stuff like that as well, just to give it a little bit more of a look. As you can see there, I made it a little bit darker in the center of that wood circle, that little darker pink circle there, just to make it shine out a little bit more, to make it look like it's the center of the stamen of a wood flower, that kind of thing. And so now I'm taking just some dark paint here. I'm doing 3 little dots just to give it a little something. And then as you saw, I've got 3 fan brushes here, and I'm going to use a pink paint mixed with water. I like to water it down, a white and a black. I'm starting in with the pink, and I'm splattering on the white areas only. And then I'm coming in with black, and I'm adding a little bit more on the pink side, all right, just to kind of allow that pink to show up. And you can see it's just barely any, but all of the colors together are going to be really nice. And I'm doing the center as well, of course. And then I come in with a little bit of white, and I do the same thing all over the whole piece. But I do a little bit more white here, really heavy in that pink circle on our middle wood piece, on our stamen area, right? Just so it really brings that darker pink circle out and really makes it look like the center of the flower. And now I'm kind of just marking right underneath that circled in, probably about 1/8 of an inch. I'm marking here around the edge so I know where to put glue on the hearts, right? Now I know where I can add my glue to, and then I'm just going to draw a little arc on both sides of the heart where I marked it. This side I'm choosing to glue the front on first. I wanted to see if it made a difference. I think I found it a little bit easier to glue the front on first, because then the hearts are laying flat on the table. Whereas the other way, when I glued the back on and glued the hearts onto the back first, I had to sit and hold the hearts in the center of that circle first. This way I don't have to. So, be a little smarter than I was. I'm adding my Beacon Power Tack glue here to where I need it on the hearts. I'm placing that big centerpiece on front first. I'm going to let that set for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to flip it over once it's dry, and I'm going to add that Beacon Power Tack glue here. And then I'll add my backwood circle here to cover up all this mess and make it look nice. That makes this project complete. It's time for project number 3. For this project, these are the fabrics I'm going to use. Now, this bottom piece is a quilt I bought online, I think at Wayfair's open box, like $21 for twin size. And these 2 fabrics came from Hobby Lobby. And this is some vintage crochet trim that I have, so that staining on there's vintage. I didn't accidentally, stain it. And then I've got a pattern I'm going to be using here and a heart. This is supposed to be like a birdhouse type pillow we're going to make. I do have a free printable for you online. It's got the directions on the front, of course. And then the pattern, it's going to come in 2 pieces. So there's one A and one B. You tape them together at the dash line. And then once you tape it together, it's half of a pattern. Okay, so basically it's like this one folded in half. So there's 2 options you can do here. If you want like the whole pattern, you don't want to work with it folded in half, you can take this, trace it onto some poster board, half of it, flip it, trace the other half, and then cut it out whole. Otherwise, you have to work with half of the pattern on a fold of a fabric, okay? And then, of course, you're going to cut out the heart pattern. It's one piece. So here's what I've done on this quilted backing. If you make it a whole pattern, you're going to cut out 2 like this. If you make it, you're using half a pattern, you have to cut on the fold. You have to fold your fabric in half is basically what it means. Place the pattern here where it says on the fold, on the main pattern you'll get, and then you're going to cut it out this way and then unfold it, and of course you'll have one piece like this, and you're going to have to do that twice. So I've got 2 pieces for this. Now I do want to make another piece with the same pattern for the top. So what I've done here it is already cut out, is I use the same pattern piece and I just cut it about a 1/2 inch shorter all the way around. You could trace this pattern out twice and make a second pattern and just make it a little bit smaller if you want, okay? So if that's easier for you than just kind of eyeballing it and cutting it out by hand. Now this fabric I've cut 2 pieces because it's kind of see-through, but you really only need 1. You need 2 for the back, 1 for this, and then for the heart as well I cut out 2 pieces, but you really only need 1. A lot of times if it's thin or even not thin, I just like the thickness of it. Now I've also cut batting for this. It's just thin batting by the yard. You could get at Walmart. All right, I cut it for the heart and for this top piece here. I cut 2. You could cut 1. You don't have to cut any. It's just how you like it. With 2 pieces of batting, see kind of the thickness here? I like that look. And then the 2 pieces of batting on the heart makes it thick as well. So it's your choice if you want to add batting to make it look a little bit thicker looking quilted. And of course you don't need any batting for the main pillow part. Now the measurements on the main pillow, the length is 18, the shorter end is 11 1/4, and from this tip to this tip it's 13 inches. Just an FYI for you. So let's first move into those of you that are gluers. You can use like Beacon Fabric Tack glue, any fabric glue or hot glue would work for you. So I'll show you what to do here first, and then we'll move into the sewing part of it. If you're a gluer and you're using batting, 1, 2 pieces, glue your batting together. We're working on the heart here. Glue your heart fabric to that batting and then glue that whole ensemble down onto that first fabric. If you don't want to use batting, then just glue that heart fabric onto that first fabric of our birdhouse. And then you're going to do the same thing with this portion. You're going to glue your batting all together, glue your fabric down all together, and then, or with or without batting, and then you're going to glue that whole ensemble down to your main pillow portion, okay? Now next we're going to add our lace up at the top, here. So I'm going to do it in one piece, all right? And I'm just going to do it on the top. I'm going to fold it in the center like this and then bring it down. You could do it in 2 pieces if you want. And then I'm going to slope the edges just like the shape of the slope is on the fabric. And if you're a gluer, you can just glue that down, 1 or 2 pieces. All right, now if we're a sewer, we're going to move on into us sewers. I want to sew around the heart, but I don't want to sew it with the batting to that first fabric with the other batting. It's way too thick. So I'm only going to sew the heart and the lace here, okay, onto the layer of the fabric only, excluding the batting. We'll add the batting in a minute. So I'm going to kind of pin down my crochet lace at the top. All right. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and sew the heart on. I'm using a size 14 needle. Again, I've got the heart, 2 pieces of batting, and I'm messing only with the fabric underneath first. I'm not adding the batting of that fabric underneath yet. We'll do that in a minute, okay? That way it's not too thick for your needle and stuff to go through, because then that's, 4 pieces of batting and then your fabric, that kind of thing. So just sewing around the heart. I'm probably about a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, because if I come in a little further, it'll really allow that border of that heart and stuff to kind of pop up a little bit with that larger seam allowance, but you can do how you want to do it, all right? Here I am sewing at the bottom of the lace only. Now remember, as I've probably said 20 times, the top of the lace will get sewn in the next step, okay? So here it is all done. I've got my heart sewn on. I've got the bottom edge of my lace only here. Now we're going to add in our batting. We'll just lay this on here, and then we'll lay this whole ensemble onto the pillow base, just 1 piece of the pillow base, okay? And we're going to sew around that whole perimeter. Just 1 piece here, not the bottom yet. I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and here's what it looks like on the back side, sewing that piece. You can see all the way around. It's probably about 1 inch in, all the way around. All right, now before we move on to the next step, gluers and sewers, I want to put a button here. So this is optional. I want to work the button for a minute, only because the gluers kind of need to move ahead here. The first button is just, a button that came in a jar of buttons, and these 2 pieces were something I cut with my wood laser machine a while back. I thought the heart would make a cute button, so that's what I'm going to use here. I need to punch some holes in my heart since that's what I want to use, so I just used my crocodile here, punched a couple of holes, and then if you're a gluer, you can add some twine through the center of whatever button you want to use, whatever shape you want to use, cut off the excess, and then go ahead and glue that on. Sewers, will come back to the step in just a minute. Now, both gluers and sewers, let's assemble our full pillow here. So if you're a gluer, you put your 2 pieces of main pillow together, and you're going to come right along the edge between the 2 pieces, and you're going to glue all the way around close to the edge, and you're going to come to a point where you leave probably about a 5-inch opening for stuffing. Sewers, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to sew all the way around the edge. I come about a 1/4 inch in, and I sew around the perimeter. I hold up all that secondary fabric. It's easy to kind of hold up out of the way so you don't get it stuck, in your sewing process here as you're sewing both of the pieces together, and just continue all the way around somewhere wherever you want, leaving about a 5-inch opening for stuffing your pillow, okay? So nice and easy. I'll continue the rest of this off camera here. All right, once we're done, gluers and sewers, we're all in the same place. Our pillows are all sewn together. We have an opening, but here's one more option for you. I want to kind of distress my fabric a little bit. So I like to use a little piece of sandpaper here. It's like 120 grit, and I just sand along the edges of that fabric. And see how it kind of frays the edges? You can see the clean edge on the right, the frayed on the left. If you like this look, continue on with it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just kind of fray the edges of that fabric. The one in the back is already kind of frayed, but if it's not, you could fray that too. I'll just fray it a little bit just to give it a little bit more, and it just kind of gives it a little bit of a rustic look, okay? Now it's time for everybody, if you've done that portion, to stuff our pillow. Go ahead and stuff your pillow. Make sure you get your points in here and stuff it as full and as tight as you want. And as I always say, once it's stuffed, sew or glue your opening closed, whichever medium you're working with. So here mine is already stuffed. I like to stuff them really tight. This is what it looks like. My end is all sewn. Sewers, I'm going to use some crochet thread here and one of these long upholstery needles, because we have a really thick area we need to go through, right? I'm going to take both threads together and tie them in a knot so it's a nice hefty knot at the end. I kind of double knot it here. Cut off the excess. I don't want too much string hanging because you will see it off the back. right? I'm going to figure out where I want to place my button, and I'm going to come through the back side here with this long upholstery needle, poke it all the way to the front and through the hole, and I'm going to pull it nice and taut there, okay? And then I'm going to come over and through the other hole right here, making sure my heart's in the area I want it. And I'm going to poke it all the way through to the back side. Now, since I'm using crochet thread, I'm going to pull it nice and taut so that that heart looks kind of indented there. I'm using crochet thread and my holes are a little bit big, so I'm going to come back through a second time. You don't have to if you use a thicker thread or whatever, but I'm going to do the same thing, come back through a second time, and as I'm pulling my thread through the holes of the button and through the back, I pull it kind of taut. See, you can see it nice and taut in there, and on the back side has a little indent. And I'm just going to cut my thread off and tie a couple of knots here. 3 or 4 knots, I think. Maybe 5. And then cut off the excess. And then that is done. Here is our cute little pillow here. Now, one more choice. I want to add some twine here. I'm going to tie it into a bow. I'm using thick twine from Walmart. If you want, you could add some beads. If I add beads, I want my tails a little longer. This is what it would look like short, but I'm going to switch to a bow here with longer tails. I'll cut off a little bit, and I'm going to add a couple of beads here. These are just beads I got at Dollar Tree. All right, so one last little decorative touch if you want. All right, I'm going to figure out how long I want my tails, and then I'll tie it in a knot here and cut off the excess. And I'll kind of smoosh the end a little bit. Right, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. I usually like one side a tiny bit longer than the other, but that's just choice. All right, tie a knot, cut off the excess, smoosh the end, and then I'm going to take my Fabri-Tac glue and I'm going to go ahead and glue that bow down to the center of my heart, giving that little bit more decoration, and that makes this project complete. Let's move right on into project number 4. For this project, I'm using all these wood slices from Dollar Tree. I've got 2 oval ones here. I wish they had more because I want to make more of this project. I love it that much. And I have 6 of these straight ones. They're just like wood planks here. All right, that's what it says. Wood slices here. And the first thing I'm going to do on the 6 straight wood slices is I want to cut off about 3.5 inches of each one. I'm just going to cut that off. One of the pieces, I'll save a little piece for a sign for this. And then on the other end, I want to make it kind of like an oval shape all the way around. We want to make this look like flower petals. I don't care if my shape's a little off or a little askew. That just makes it cute and whimsical. So I'm going to do that on all 6 of these slices. All right. And then on 2 of them, I'm going to have to come at a diagonal like this, and I'll show you why. This is the way I'm doing it. It's so my boards can all kind of sit flat on the first layer. So 2 of them, I'm going to do a diagonal. All right. So of course, as you can see, here I am outside, and let's start cutting a few of our boards here. And then here's my 2 pieces. I went for a little bit deeper angle cut here, and I'll cut 2 on that angle. Now what I'm doing is taking my jigsaw, I'll just show you on one here, and I'm just using it to cut my petal shape at the end. Nice and easy to do. I'll do that on all 6 boards, and I know you're looking at my bunny slippers down below. I had to point them out. They are too stinking cute. I love my bunny slippers. Anyway, now what I'm doing here is taking my electric sander, and I'm just making everything smooth. And on some of my petals, I didn't get quite a round shape. I wasn't worried about it because I knew I could smooth off if it would looked a little bit square or whatever. Again, I don't care if the petals are, some are skinnier, some are a little bit weird in shape. I want it that way. Now I'm using my Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water here, and I'm going to stain the front and back of both my wood slices. I just show one here, but staining the front and back. And as you notice, we didn't have to do any cutting or anything to the wood slice. We're doing it as it is. And taking my Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth, just one coat, front and back. I just wanted to just have a really light color, not wood color, but a light color. That's why I went ahead and, because you could just leave them unpainted if you want. Then once everything is dry, I'll come in with my electric sander again and just distress like around the edges and try to get a little bit of that wood to show. So like here, it makes that stain kind of pop up a little bit more. And you're not going to notice a lot of the paint coming off onto the flower petals because I use such a light color. But again, I didn't want it just wood color, but you could paint it any shade of paint that you want. But I wanted it to have some color. Anyway, so I'm just kind of distressing around the edges, front and back of both those, because you all know I like my front and back to look finished off. Now I'm going to use some nails here. They're all the little short nails except two that are really long, and I'm doing that for a reason. So I'm putting the two in first. They're really long because I'm going to wrap some wire around them later to hang a cute little mini sign that, we used one of the excess piece of wood slice that we cut off one of our petals. I cut one just a little bit shorter for a sign. And then I'm going to take those shorter nails. They're probably 1/2 inch, maybe they're 3/4 inch. And just, about 1 inch apart, I'm going to go around. They don't go through the wood at all. They're just the right length. And so maybe they are 1/2 inch. Because I leave a little bit sticking up. I'm just going to go around the perimeter in the middle as well, and I'm just going to fill the whole thing to make it look like it's stamen through the center and give us a nice rustic look. And no, it's not my idea. I saw this on Pinterest and thought it was super cute. Now what I'm going to do is take some brown paint mixed with water and my fan brush and adding some splatters on both of my wood slices. And then I'm going to take black paint mixed with water and add some splatters here as well, front and back of my petals. Okay, and then I do have another pink paint we're going to splatter in a little bit. So I'm going to use this Beacon Power Tack glue again, and I'm taking my 2 pieces of wood slice that I angle cut. I'm going to add some glue on the side, and I'm going to press it right next to a regular flower petal shape. All right, one's going to be on top, one's going to be on the bottom. They're going to be opposite of each other. I'm doing this the easy way. And then I'm taking my 2 petals. See how the one side I had to cut off that doesn't have bark? So what I did is I made sure that bark was on one end of one side and the bark was on the opposite end of the other side. I traced around them so I knew where they were going to fit onto these 4 petals here, so I can add my glue and then I'll put them into place. Okay, and I'm going to let that dry about 10 minutes. Once that's dry, I've now got it flipped over to the bottom. I'm going to add the wood slice without the nails in it. I'm going to trace where it's going to lay on those 4 bottom flat petals. And then I'm going to add my Power Tack glue here. Again, sets in 10 minutes, so I was able to move it around, add my wood slice on the bottom. And now I was able to flip that over after 10 minutes, and we're going to do the same thing on the front. We're going to trace around the wood slice, add our Power Tack glue, and place our wood slice down. Now, once all that's dry, I'm going to add some moss here. And then I've got some Dollar Tree crochet trim. This is optional. Both of these are optional, but we've got a hole there. I would at least add the moss. And we're just going to add some moss in that hole. So the top portion, I'm going to have it like moss come in that hole. And then over to the left side, just a little bit. It'll hide any glue that might have leaked out or anything like that. Make it look cute. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom into that hole where I can stuff the moss. And we're going to hide our hole. And I'll do a little bit to the left side, some on the right, but it's pretty well going to be covered anyway. But all right, so you could leave it just like this at this point, but I thought it would be cute to add, a couple of little strips of that crochet trim and just kind of tuck it under the moss, gather it up a little bit, glue it, just to kind of give it a little bit of a sweet kind of country look. Again, this is optional, but I just think it looks really cute. And you can see the color kind of matches our paint, right? So it doesn't really stand out a whole lot. So it's just there kind of subtle. I'll do top and bottom here. Right? However much you want. I just think it adds. Anyway, that's my thing on the matter. Now I'm taking a big piece of wire here. I just cut a big long piece, wrap the paintbrush around one to make one curly Q, and then I'm going to, here's my little sign I cut. I painted it as well with the drop cloth, and I'm going to take the wire, the curlicue is going to kind of go in the center, and I'll take each end of the wire and wrap it around those two little bit longer nails that I placed in here. Remember, that's why I did that. They're a little longer to wrap around. Now, it's not really tight. It's just, it'll help hold it. But when you get the sign on, you get the wire through the wood and all that, it'll hold just fine. Now what I've got here, I've cut a piece of paper and sewed around it like I usually do, sewing around my papers. And I'm going to open into my scissor blades and scrape along the edges. And then I've got a little vinyl quote here. And I made four different options. You can see in the upper right corner here, some are with arrows and some without. But they are a little bit small, depending on your sign. But this last option I'm using, I enlarged it a little bit more because it was a little bit hard to weed. So small. I'm like, nope, I'm out. So I made it larger so it was easier to weed. But you got lots of options when you go to my blog and click on that particular PDF. So a little tale from Bella here as she walks through. I've got that vinyl on, and then I'm going to put that cardstock onto my wood sign. And now here's my pink paint I talked about earlier. I'm going to just splatter a little bit onto the sign, and I do splatter a little bit on the petals. Now I'm taking a really small drill bit, and I am drilling some holes on either side at the top of our little sign here. Just doing it over twine. That worked well for a base to drill into. And see kind of where I want to get my wire through, how short I want it to get my wire through my holes here, and cut off the excess. And I'm just going to take some jewelry pliers here and kind of twirl my wire around and smush it down to the sign. Gives it a little bit of a country look, and I'll do that on both sides. Twirl it around it so it rounds it, and then smush it down to the hole. And it covers your hole too. And then I'm going to place it on those two longer nails. Now you can leave it like this, but it's a little floppy. So I want to take up that space in here, right? Optional, couple of those Jenga blocks or tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree I glued together and painted around the edges so it looks nice. And I'm going to go ahead, and it's small so you won't really see it a whole lot. And I'm going to power tack it down to the bottom petal here, add a little on top, place my sign on it onto the nails, and that makes this project complete. So super cute, but let's walk right on into project number 5. For this project, I'm going to use these fabrics. The green came from Hobby Lobby, the orange from Walmart, I believe. And then I'm also going to use this that comes from Joann's. It's a quilted fabric. And this that was a blanket or a quilt I bought off eBay. But if you don't have this, I know like this quilted from Joann's, they make this in white as well or other colors. So you could use that for a background. I will have a 3-page free PDF pattern for you. The link will be in my description box to my blog. Click on that pattern and let me take a little peek and show you what this is about. So page 1 and 2 is the pattern of the bunny we're making. You're going to tape it together at the dash lines and cut it out. Now the part where it says place on the fold here, you're going to place that on the fold of your fabric. So those of you that are new or might not understand it, basically you fold your fabric in half, you've got a fold there, you're going to place this part on the fold, and then you're going to cut it out, okay, obviously. And then when you open it, you've got a full-size pattern. You have to do that twice because you need 2 of them. Now, if you don't want to do that, you could take this, trace it onto some poster board. Okay, I'm going to show it with my pattern already cut out. So I've cut this out, trace it onto some poster board, flip it, trace the other side, and then cut it out into a full pattern like this. And then you can use this and just trace 2 this way on your fabric, not having to place it on a fold. Page 3, you have your inner ear, which you'll cut 2 out of fabric, a pocket you'll cut 1, and a carrot you'll cut 2. In all pieces, you have the option of cutting out batting as well. Okay, now if you can cut the carrot out whole and just use one color, like say you want to use like just a neutral color like a off-white or a cream, or you can elect to cut the greenery part in a different color, obviously in green. So on page 1 is the carrot top part if you want to cut that out in green and then have your carrot in orange. So I've got my main bunny cut out 2 pieces. All right, and then I've got my batting cut out 2 pieces. Again, it's optional if you want to use batting. And then my pocket, it's already quilted, but I just want it thicker. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces. You could cut 1 or 2 pieces out of batting. I like to add more batting because it just gives it a thicker quilted look, okay? 2 inner ear pieces. Again, I'm adding the option of 1 more piece of batting. 2 I thought was too thick. Then I've got my 2 whole carrot pieces in orange and my 2 carrot tops in green. Now the carrot top is a little bit longer than the original, and I did that for a reason, okay? I'll show you that here in just a minute. We're just going to, give it a little fun rustic look. So basically, also, I cut my batting out. And what I did is cut it out whole, and then I cut it across at the, junction of the carrot and the carrot top. So you have 4 separate pieces. So what I did, so the carrot top, the greenery, I left it long so that we could have a rustic look at the bottom of the carrot. So you're going to just cut off about 1/4 of that. Okay, and then just fray the edges, and then when you lay it on there, it'll meet right at the junction of the original pattern, okay? Do that on both pieces. I'll show you how to put this all together in a minute, and then that's what it would look like, okay? Giving us, again, that rustic look. So if you're a gluer or a sewer, I'm spot gluing, and you're using batting, you're going to glue your batting to your carrot top. And then we'll just glue that whole ensemble to the original top of the carrot. But before we do that, some of that might peek out. So if you're using, like I did, just cut it all out in orange, just around the sides and the top, just trim like 1/8 of an inch off so we don't see it, but we have something to glue to. And then you're going to take and just glue that whole thing we just did here to that top of that original pattern. Okay, just like that on both pieces. Then if you're a gluer or a sewer, I'm spot gluing, you're going to glue the bottom part of the batting pieces to the wrong side of the fabric on the carrot, on the inside of that carrot pattern. And of course you want it at the bottom of the carrot. Then if you're a gluer, you're going to start gluing it together. You're going to put glue right along the edge between the 2 fabrics all the way around, not gluing the top portion of the greenery. So you're just gluing around the sides of your carrot to put it together, but not the top. Now, if you're a sewer, you can have the option of sewing across the bottom part of that greenery, and then again you're going to do like the gluers and sew all the way around the sides, leaving the top open. Now you don't have to sew along that bottom portion of the greenery because it's probably going to get covered up. Not probably, it will get covered up with the twine that we're going to wrap around it, but I know I did it, okay? So you can not sew that part if you don't want to, but you definitely need to sew all the way around the edges except for the top part of the carrot. We want to leave that top part open so that, of course, we can stuff our carrot. All right, so I'm going to finish this a little bit up here. Now go ahead and stuff your carrot. Only stuff to the top part of that orange of the carrot. And then if you're a gluer or a sewer, you can glue the top or sew the top, okay? And we'll scrunch that up and make it look all scrunchy there when we do twine. Here's mine all sewn at that top edge. All right, now let's move on to the rest of our bunny. If you're a gluer and you're using batting, you want to glue all your batting pieces together to your pocket. And around that outer edge, you want to glue that pocket to the bunny shape, just around that edge. Leave that top open. That's where we're going to stuff our carrot. Okay, if you're a sewer, you do want to probably sew across this top edge, lay your pattern down onto your bunny, and then sew around that rest of that edge. And I'm only going to sew it on the first layer of fabric. I'm not going to worry about trying to put my batting in there. Then we're going to do the same thing at the top. If you're a gluer, glue your batting to your piece if you added batting, and then glue those inner ear pieces to the bunny ears. Sewers, you're going to sew that whole ensemble to just that first layer of fabric, okay? Because really we don't need to get the batting in there just yet. So I'm sewing the top of my fabric here for sewers. Then I've pinned that pocket to the bottom part of the bunny, and I'm sewing around that outer curved edge. And then here I am just doing one of the ears, the inner ears I should say, the inner ear, sewing around that ensemble onto that first layer of fabric. And I've probably got about a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Perfect. Now, this is what it all looks like. I got my pocket sewn. It's open. All right. My inner ears are on. They're ready to go. Now, if you're a gluer and you use batting, now's the time to get all your batting for the big bunny glued to your top piece and glued to your bottom piece. And then you're going to glue both of those pieces together, leaving a little opening right here for stuffing. If you're a sewer, of course, now you're going to go ahead and lay your bottom piece, both of your batting pieces and your top piece of fabric together, sew all the way around it, but leave an opening for stuffing. And I've probably got 1/2 inch, maybe even here, somewhere between 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So it really allows that area where I didn't sew to kind of just fluff up with all that batting and stuff. So hopefully that's all understandable. It's kind of different when you add extra batting, and you got to glue, especially if you're a gluer, you got to glue your batting to your fabric piece first before you can put it all together. But hopefully even just watching the video and what I'm saying gives you some semblance of what I'm trying to say and not confuse you. So here I am sewn all the way around. I've got this open, all right? Now, before we stuff, I want to show you, I want to fold my ear down. So you want to be careful when you stuff in here. If you want to fold it down, it's optional. Just lightly stuff so that you have enough pliable room in there to fold your ear down, okay? So I just kind of want to give you that heads up. Now go ahead and stuff your whole pillow, and then once you're done, you can glue that opening closed or sew that opening closed. Now, I'm all stuffed. Everything's closed. I'm going to add some buttons. I've got 2 buttons for the pocket, a big button for the top. All right, I'm just going to use twine to add my buttons on. If you're a gluer, you can add twine to the center of your buttons and then glue those buttons on. And if you're a sewer or a gluer, you might like to hand sew. I'm using a big upholstery needle because it has a large enough eye opening to get that thicker twine through, and I'm just sewing it with that twine through that pocket. And as you can see, I'm using pliers to pull that through because I have so much thickness of fabric, and then trying to pull that twine, that thicker twine through, that's why I'm doing that. And then just sew both of your buttons on. I'm just doing one here, and then on the inside, knot it off, cut off the excess. And then here's how it looks with both buttons on, really cute. And in the top, now you could just sew the button on here if you don't want to fold your ear down, but I want to fold my ear down, of course. So I'm starting through the back of the fabric. I'm pulling it through. And then about a 1/2 inch up, I'm going to pull it still through the front to the back. It's not going to fold our fabric yet. And then I'm going to add my button, folding my fabric over, and then add the twine through the other hole. And then now I'm going to take that needle through the front and back of the fabric and try to come out where you kind of knotted it in the first place. Pull it all the way through, and then once you get that button on there, that's what's going to hold your fold in place. And then as you get to the back, just go ahead and knot it off the back side, and then cut off the excess, and you've got your cute little fold in there. Again, optional. Now our carrot, let's go back to decorating it. These little tassels came on that quilt that I cut up for the original bunny, so I thought I'm going to save them. And I'm going to use some beads. You might want to just use beads. So when I started this, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to get my tassels on the twine first, right? And then I will go ahead and wrap my twine around, the top of my carrot here from, right at the juncture of the greenery and the carrot, wrap it around 3 or 4 times, and then, make a little bow. Right? And you don't have to put the tassels on first. I was just thinking that'd be easier. And then tie a little knot. And then I decided, wait a minute, the reason I'm using the beads is so when I tie that tassel on, I don't want to see the knot at the top of the tassel where I tied it on. So then I had to take my tassels off, put my beads on first, and then put my tassels on. And so I'm now tying a little knot at the top of my tassel. And then I'm going to take a needle to push the twine through the top of that bead and pull that bead down over that knot, and then cut off the excess of that twine, and then it'll hide that tail of the twine at the top of my tassel. Understandable? You could just add a bead and tie it off if you want. Once I get both of those done, right, so super cute, I'm going to tuck it in my pocket. And that makes this project complete. Are we having fun yet? Well, let's move on into project number 6. For this project, I have a bunch of different scrapbook papers here and then some supplies from Dollar Tree, okay? And it's pretty easy putting this together. So I've got 2 cubes from Dollar Tree. Now, these are the older cubes. They're really heavy. The newer ones, I think, are hollow on the inside, but that's okay because I also have 2 of these wood slices left. Remember from the flower I made, save the ends of the petals that I cut off. I've got a couple of wood slices here. I know Dollar Tree has packages of wood slices, a couple of these thick wood circles from Dollar Tree, a couple of dowels, but you only really need 1, and then some of these egg-shaped pieces from Dollar Tree. And what I want to do is kind of make a 3-layer wood circle. So I'm going to, on this thick wood circle, I'm going to lay, so I've got 2 of these that I cut. I'm going to lay that on top, and then my wood slice on top of that. So I have like a 3-layer wood thing going on here to make a flower, right? So I'm using one of the eggs, and I'm going to turn the other egg around, and I'm going to trace that to make a wood circle. It's so thin that I can just cut that off because I got a package of these eggs for projects and I've only used 1 or 2. Might as well use them up. And I want to cut 2 circles because I want it to be a little bit thicker, but you could just cut 1. So it's a way to use up the eggs. And then I'll take the circle that I just got all cut and I'll trace it onto another egg and I will cut that out as well. Again, you can cut 1 or 2. Maybe you don't even want to do this part. You want to just add the wood slice to the center, but I thought it'd be a little bit better in layers. And then once I get these cut, and I'm just using some serrated edges scissors, I'm just going to take some sandpaper and just kind of, smooth out that little roughness of the cut. Okay, and I do this for both of our flowers. And then I can just kind of layer them together. They should kind of fit decently. I don't care if a little edge is poking out because it was cut funny. That just gives our rustic flowers a little bit of personality. And then again, like I said earlier, we lay our wood slice on top. So now for my thicker wood circle, I've traced the back and the front, of course, and on the front side, I'm going to come in probably about 1/8 of an inch in, and I'm going to redraw that border there. The back side's going to be completely covered on both flowers. I'm just showing you on one flower. I've got the other one already cut and ready. So redraw that perimeter, and then I'm going to cut that out. Again, the back is fully covered, and then this front one here, when I lay it on there, you'll see a little bit of border around there, and it will cover up our circle. All right? And I'm going to do the same, well, actually, no. On the center of our wood flower, I'm going to cut it out and cover it completely. I'm not worried about cover the back because we're going to glue that down, right? So it'll cover that centerpiece completely. On the wood slice, I'm going to do the same thing. I've traced around it and about 1/4 inch in, I came in there and redrew that pattern perimeter, and I'm going to cut that out. And sometimes you'll have a funny shape because your wood slice is shaped funny, but that's okay because it will look good once you place it on there and see that little border around there. All right, and here's my other side. It's all cut and ready to go. And I chose patterns. You can do the same colors for each one, but I chose colors and patterns that all coordinated together but gave me 2 different complete flowers. Now my bottom square pieces, I've got paper cut for that, and then I only cut 1 piece for the top of the block. This is how it's going to look when it's assembled. Okay, nice and easy. And now I'm going to take my Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water, heavily watered down, and we will stain those. But first thing I did is I glued those 2 thin wood egg circles together, okay? And then I can come in and stain this because I wasn't going to stain it at all, and I decided, well, it needs just a little bit of color. So I'm just staining all my pieces nice and light. I don't sand them or anything like that. I just kind of leave them like that because once they dry, they'll dry even lighter. And I think I originally wanted a little bit of stain, especially around these thicker wood circles. That little bit of stain around, it just gives it some coloring around the edge of that, okay? And here's my blocks doing that as well. Not worrying about the bottom that will glue down. I like to sew on my papers as well, just as if I'm sewing on fabric. I use a size 9 or 10 needle, right? Stitch length is on 4, tension set on 4, and I just sew around it, and I go from paper to fabric to paper to fabric. None of it bothers me. It doesn't dull my needle, doesn't break anything, and just so normal. Now I'm taking some colored inks that match my papers, and as you can see on the right side as I inked around the edge, how it compares to the left side, it just gives a little bit of shadowing to kind of help that paper pop up and not look so flat on our wood surface. And then I've got a little bit of a light tan here to go on any papers that had some tans, and I've got a nice shade of pink here to go on any papers that had some pinks. This is all optional. And then the next thing I want to do to add a little bit more personality to our papers so that when we glue it onto our wood, it looks neat, is I take the open end of my scissor blades, I scrape along the edges to kind of roughen those up, give it a little bit of a rustic texture. And between the scraping of the paper around the edges and our ink around the edges is going to help that paper to just kind of pop up off the wood. And all this is optional. You can just glue it to your wood. You don't have to do any of this. My wood dowel here, I only used one. I drilled a hole in each of the bottom of the thick wood pieces, and then I marked the center of the wood blocks, and I drilled a hole in the center of the wood blocks. My wood dowel, I cut one at 7 and one at 5 inches. If you wanted to use 2 dowels, have them both the same length, you could do that. Now what I'm doing is laying my squares. It's going to go on top of the wood block, and I'm pressing where that hole was drilled so it indents it. All right, and then I know where to cut the circle out, but when I cut the circle out, I'm actually cutting it smaller than the actual size, so that when I push my dowel through that paper into that hole, it'll give us a nice clean edge right around the end of that dowel. Okay, and then the excess paper will pop out along the underside, right? We won't see that. And then I glue both my papers at the top of the block, and then I'm gluing both my papers on the bottom of those wood slices. And then I'm going to glue the papers to the front and back of both of my thick wood slices. And then I'm just going to go back and forth. I'm kind of jumping back and forth between the flowers, and I'm just getting all my papers glued everywhere that I need to glue my papers, of course. Now, as far as the bases go, you don't really need to have like wood underneath that block if you have the heavier blocks, but I just thought it gave a better proportionate look to it. But if you have the lighter blocks that they're making now, like I said, I think they're hollow inside, you probably want a base underneath it, okay? And then once I get all the papers on, then I'm just going to start gluing, using my Fabri-Tac glue, gluing those thinner circles in the center, and then the wood slice right on top. That Fabri-Tac glue will hold these pieces. They're nice and light. And then I need to make some leaves, right? And I wanted this to kind of look vintage, so I have crochet lace from Joann's, as well as some of the sheer green lace, and I'm just layering both of those together because I need a little bit of green, right? It's supposed to look like leaves. And I'm just doing like a half knot bow around each of the dowels here, both sides, just kind of, wrapping it around the dowel and just doing that little half knot. I don't try to do another half knot on top because I think that would look too bulky. Okay, just like that, nice and easy. And then what I'm going to do is take my Beacon Quick Grip glue, and I'm going to glue my wood block to the bottom of my wood slice. And then I add some of that glue inside of the hole on the flower, and then just inside of the hole on the block, and then push that dowel into it. That one's done. I do the same thing on the other flower, get those put together, and that makes this one done. And then that makes this project complete. Are you still with me? If so, throw a carrot in your comment. Let's go into project number 7. For this project, I'm going to use these 3 fluffy fabrics I got off Etsy. And then I'm going to use some batting, of course. And I've got this placemat I found at a thrift store. I love the texture. I'm going to use it for some greenery on top of some carrots we're making. I do have a pattern for you, although you could, freehand it yourself. It just looks like a skinny pizza slice. But it is about 10 inches long, and then across the top of that straight edge is about 5 inches wide if you wanted to draw it yourself. So I have everything already pre-cut out. One carrot's actually already done because you wanted to know that, but for each carrot you need 2 pieces of fabric and then 2 optional pieces of batting. So if you're a gluer, you're going to take 1 piece of fabric, 1 piece of batting, you're going to glue those together, all right? And then you're going to do the same with the other side. Fabric, batting, glue together. Then you're going to put both of those together, whether or not you added batting. And right along the 2 long edges between the 2 fabric, you're going to glue that down and keep the top open for stuffing. If you're a sewer, you're going to do that same routine of putting those fabrics in that order, and then sew along the two long edges, keeping that top open for stuffing. The stuffing I'm going to use today is from Dollar Tree. I actually really like the stuffing. It's good quality, it's soft, it's almost luxurious, and this stuff, even though it's 4 ounces, goes a long way. So fill your carrot up to about 1 inch from the top. We want about 1 inch where there's no stuffing so that we can put our carrot top inside of it. Okay, so both my carrots stuffed. I'm going to use, again, like I said, the placemat I got from a thrift store. It's about 3 3/4 inch in like width, and then the length is about, I think, 5.5 or so. You could use any fabric you want. Like I said, I just love the texture of this. And then I'm just going probably about every 1/4 inch, and I'm cutting it down till about a 1/2 inch from the bottom. We're going to leave that. We're not going to cut all the way down the bottom. Leave about a 1/2 inch remaining at that bottom, and you can make these as wide as you want. But 1/4 inch did fine. And also what I love about this placemat is the wrong side is kind of a lighter green. So when some of that light green shows from the top part, it looks kind of fun. So here both my carrots are stuffed and ready to go. All right. Again, about 1 inch from the top, even though the stuffing's poking out, it is 1 inch. You're going to take your carrot top and kind of scrunch it in the center, and I want to place it in here so it's kind of got like an arc, a downward arc, and then you can glue or sew it in. But now when you do that, try to keep it in toward the center, about 1 inch from each edge, and then, like I said, kind of those outer edges, kind of tuck them in a little bit more so you kind of have a nice little arc going. All right, now what I'm going to use are these tags. I printed onto some fabric and I sewed around them. And I'll discuss these tags a little bit more in the next project. And I'm just taking some ink I have left over on this ink dauber and just inking around the edges just to kind of, you know, give it a little bit of coloration there. I think that looks a little better, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Right, get both of those ready, and then I have a couple of buttons here. Of course, I'll add some twine through the center, and then a couple of longer pieces of twine, probably, you know, couple feet of twine. And now we're going to take that twine right about where you sewed or glued, and make sure your ends, as you go to tie the twine, you know, I'm wrapping it around front and back 2 or 3 times. Those ends are going to want to fold in, but make sure you make them tuck out. So you see, you kind of have this cute little pattern of carrot at the top. You see what I'm saying? So that's why we left kind of that little 1 inch detail, not only to sew your greenery in, but also so it gives us a little bit of poof coming out the top of our twine. I'm going to say it again, poof. So kind of straighten things out and then make a little bow. I'm going to just glue that down a little bit. I've got about a minute before that sets up. And then what I'll do, it's still wet. I'm going to glue the tag in right in between those 2 areas and then finish my bow here. Okay. And I'll do the same thing on both sides, wrapping around the top about 1 inch down from the bottom, straightening my ends. I go about, you know, 2 times around, bringing it back around the front, straighten those edges so we have that cute little poof at the top. Adding a little glue here underneath my knot, and then I'll add the little fabric down there. Also on the fabric, I added a little batting to it as well, just to give it a little country look, and I'll kind of put that underneath that twine area there and finish off the bow. Because I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, I add a little batting to the back, but you don't have to. And then, of course, trimming my tails a little bit on my bows. And then we're going to take and kind of crinkle that tag up a little bit. So I'm just crinkling it up a little bit and adding a little glue so it stays in place. Then we're going to add our little button in the center of the bows. In the final looks, you're going to see a little bit of moss coming out at the top of the button. I thought it just needed a little bit more decoration. I did do the tags in order so it makes sense. It says Spring Bunny Hop. Did that on purpose. Once I add the last button, that makes this project complete. It's time for project number 8. For this project, I have these fabrics from Jubilee Fabrics. This is from Hobby Lobby, and then this just plain color is also from Jubilee Fabrics. I have some batting, and for the background, this is just a quilt I bought off Wayfair I've been cutting up, so you could use any fabrics you want. The shapes are going to be eggs. Now, I was originally going to do 2 egg pillows, but I thought, okay, let's try to do something a little different. So I've got a free printable for you for the large egg and the small egg. One, we will make a pillow out of the large egg, and the smaller will be a wall hanging. So for the pattern, here's the large egg pattern. You'll cut it out and then tape the two together at the dash line. And what you'll do is fold your fabric in half, and on the fold, you'll take your pattern, which will be a half of a pattern, place that on the fold, and then you cut that out. If you want your pattern whole in its entirety so you don't have to fold your fabric, what you can do is print it out, cut it out, tape it at the seams, trace one side on poster board, flip it, trace the other side, and then cut it out so you have a full pattern. You'll have the same thing for the small egg pattern as well. You'll do the same procedure with it, whether you want it folded on fabric or trace it to make it the full size. So you've got two patterns there. This is what the small size looks like. Okay, so we're going to work simultaneously between both sizes of egg. So this is the large egg. I've got my 2 pieces cut out and 2 pieces of batting. You'll sandwich the batting in between, just like we did on the carrots. Now for the pattern pieces of fabric on top, I took this egg pattern, I cut it out, and then I cut my fabric about a 1/2 inch shorter all the way around. And also for my pattern pieces on top, back to the egg, you could use the smaller egg for your pattern pieces on top, but it's about 1 inch shorter all the way around, so it's your choice. I only wanted to go about a 1/2 inch shorter. Now for the top piece as well, I wanted 2 fabrics, so I took folded my pattern in half here, not in half, about 3/4 and 1/4 to cut out my fabrics for this. So here's my bottom piece. It's about 1/4 of the egg, right? The smaller egg, and then the top piece is about 3/4, but you could cut it however you want. You could use 1 fabric, 2 fabric, 3 fabric, however you want to do it. And then for your batting, you're going to cut it out whole in its entirety, and in your however many fabrics, designer fabrics you want to lay on top. Now, if you're a gluer, what you're going to do, basically like the carrots, you're going to glue all your batting pieces together if you like that, and then glue your fabric to your batting pieces, okay? And then I'm going to add some trim across that center divide so we can hide those ends. And mine's a little thin, so I cut 2 pieces. If you're a gluer, you're going to glue that all the way across and then tuck it in around the back on the sides and glue it around the back side. And then you're going to take that whole ensemble and glue it to your pillow top. Okay, if you're a sewer, I'm going to go ahead and glue the trim on. Okay, and then I'm going to sew my egg on just to the top layer of our main pillow fabric. Okay, so first off, I am using, which I forgot to say, 2 pieces of fabric for each one. It's just choice. You really only need 1 layer. I just like it to look a little thicker and quilted, that kind of thing. So I'm going to just kind of glue my fabric pieces together here. Okay, gluing all my pieces together. Got that down. And then we'll go ahead and glue on the cute little eyelet lace. And I know you're wondering where I got that. I got that at a garage sale, probably 30 yards of it for like $2 like 8 years ago. So anyway, you could use whatever trim you want. So I'm sorry I don't have a link for that. So I'm just using a light glue across the top because it will shine through because that lace is thin, light layer, gluing it across the top to hold it in place, and then around the sides of that first layer of fabric, and then of course taking it to the sewing machine to sew that ensemble onto the first layer of the pillow fabric. Okay, I don't want to glue all the other layers of batting and stuff of the back pillow piece yet. We just want to get this front decorative piece into place. Okay, and if you're a gluer and you want to add some cute country stitching, you can do some, glue everything on and then do some hand stitches through the layers of your fabric pieces and your main pillow piece, the top of your main pillow piece. Because I know we have some gluers out there that like to hand sew, and it would be really cute to add some hand stitches. All right, so this is, I've got it all sewn. It's going to be easier to see on the back here, sewn it onto that first layer of the main pillow. If you're a gluer and you're using batting on that main pillow, you're going to glue the batting to the front layer of your pillow base and the batting to the back layer of your pillow base. Put both of those pieces together and then glue around the edge between the 2 layers all the way around, leaving about a hand width opening for stuffing. If you're a sewer, I'm going to sew around it on that back layer of fabric there, okay? And then leave a pillow open for stuffing. Here's what mine looks like, all sewed, ready to go. Off camera, I'm going to go ahead and stuff it as stuffed full as I want. And then, as I said, if you're a gluer, glue that opening closed. If you're a sewer, sew it closed. We're going to set it aside. Now we're going to move on to the other egg, our little wall hanging. Get Bella out of the way here a little bit. You get some feet and tail in the picture. We're layering it together. We've got 2 pieces of fabric, 2 pieces of batting, just like we layered the first one. My top piece, I've got 2 pieces of batting. It's about a 1/2 inch smaller all the way around. Again, I cut that top piece smaller. I've cut this almost in half, and we're going to use some cute lace here. Bella's going to hold on to us for us and play with it a little bit. I can't get it away from her. Bite, bite, bite. But anyway, cute little trim I got from Joann's. And also, what I want to do is layer my back piece, layer some batting, and this is 1-inch cotton batting. I get it off of eBay. I'll leave a link down below. And I actually kind of split that in half, so it's 1/2-inch batting. And then I layer the other piece of batting on top, which is batting you can get from Walmart, and then layer the other fabric piece on top of that, so you can see how really thick it is, and it looks all quilted and yummy. Again, for my decorative fabric on top, you saw that I'm using 2 pieces each, but you don't have to, okay? So if you're a gluer, same kind of process here. Take your glue and you're going to glue your batting pieces together for the top decorative part. Glue that to your fabric pieces, or if you're not using batting, then just glue your fabric piece down. But first, make sure you get your trim in place. Glue it down, wrap it around the sides, and then you can glue your whole ensemble down on top, or just, you know, your batting and fabric, or just fabric to the top edge. I'm going to sew it just like I did the last one, same process, but I want to just kind of, you know, glue my fabric into place here first. It'll help hold it, and especially because I've got 2 layers here, get everything glued. It'll be easier to take to the sewing machine. I don't have to pin everything. Perfect. And then I'm going to add my cute crochet trim here, kind of spot glue that on, and it'll stay on there, and I don't have to sew across that trim or anything. Like that, and then wrap it around the sides. I'm wrapping this around fabric and batting because I chose to use some batting. Hopefully this is all understandable. And then I will take this to the sewing machine on the top layer only, just like we did the last one. Here it is all sewn. Again, you could hand stitch that if you want. You can see it better on the back side. And then we're going to put all of this together. If you're a gluer, you're going to glue your back batting. If you use the thicker batting in between, if not, you know, glue it all together. But first, this is a wall hanging, so we want to add a little hanger here. I'm just using some crochet trim here, tied a little bow. I'm going to place it at the top and center it. So whether you're using the thick batting or just, you know, batting from Walmart, whatever you want to use for a hanger, glue it in the center of your wall hanging, all your pieces. I'm just gluing mine in place in between that batting there, so it's just direct center so it hangs nicely. All right? And then glue everything together if you're a gluer. All right, I'm going to take mine and sew around that outer edge there. Okay, so I have it all sewed. You can see how nice and stiff it is with that batting in there. And for sewers, when I went through where the ribbon was for the hanger, I kind of back stitched back and forth a little bit just to give it a little extra security. But if you're a gluer, it will hold just fine. So let's add some cute rolled roses to both of our eggs here. I've already got a few done, and yes, I'm going to show you how to do it. It's fun, it's simple, it's easy, and they can be a little tighter, a little looser, however you like it. And then I have a couple of ribbons we're going to add as well to each of these. So here's 2 I have left to roll, so let's do that. You need, I'm using 2 layers of fabric. One is sufficiently plenty, but see how this one's tighter and this one's looser? It all just depends how you roll it, okay? You'll need some glue, hot glue or a Fabri-Tac glue, and I like to use some tweezers to help roll it together, all right? So you're going to start at the end. You're going to want to start really skinny. So you have like a really skinny tail here. And as you go in, you're just going to cut it into a spiral. And as you cut, see how my spiral is getting bigger and bigger. The outer layer is getting bigger and bigger. So you're going to keep doing that till you get down to the bottom and you just have a nice little tiny circle left, maybe a 1-inch circle. Okay, and I'll roll it up here on the table so you can see what it looks like. Just like this all the way around. Easy. And you're going to take your tweezers at that little skinny end, and you're just going to keep your tweezers pinched and begin to roll this onto your tweezers. Now make sure you roll that bottom edge. Keep that as together as you can so it's all even at that bottom edge. You know what I'm saying? So as you roll it, that bottom edge stays even on your tweezers. It's okay if it gets a little bit off, but just try to keep it. And see, try to keep it even, and the last little bit was easier to me, just hold the tweezers and roll it with my other hand. All right, so now it's really tightly rolled. This is how you get it loose. I just lay it on the table, and I just begin to untwist that rose a little bit right in the center. Okay, messing with it a little bit, holding that bottom so it doesn't all come unravel down there. Even take my tweezers and undo the center a little bit. This is what it looks like up close, okay? And then take it all together, one piece, flip it over, and then add some glue in that center really good and all around those cut edges. And then lay that little 1-inch circle you kind of got on the bottom together. And when I flip it over, I'll press the center down in to make sure that glue got there and glued to that bottom layer. Okay, let's do our last one a little bit quicker this time. And we're going to start skinny and go wider as we go, getting down to about a 1-inch circle. I'm going to lay it down here all spiraled up. Going to grab our tweezers at that skinny end. We're going to roll it around. I'm loosely rolling it here toward the end. 2 layers just kind of gives it a little bit more fringe, but again, it could be one piece of fabric. And then I'm going to lay it down on top of that circle and untwist it a little bit. And each one's going to look different depending on how untwisted you untwist it. Right? Using my tweezers in the center to untwist it a little bit more so it's not so tight. And then I'll show a close-up right here. You can see they look totally different even though it was the same process. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm gluing down and kind of in a trio, and I'm kind of gluing these two, and I'll do it on both. I put a little glue here on the side of the flower so I can kind of tilt them upward together and kind of glue them on their side a little bit. So I'm not gluing them totally flat on the pillow. See how it's kind of a little side? Then I'm going to glue my little bow down here. And I'll trim off the tails as long as I want them to be. I'll put my other little flower down here. Now remember 2 layers. Glue those 2 bottom layers of that little 1-inch circle together, right? Remember to do that if you have 2 layers of fabric like I'm doing. And then trimming off my tails. And now here was from the last one, the last project, I had printed onto fabric. You can see the ones I'm going to use for this, and then it says Carrot Spring Bunny. Those are the ones I used in the last project. I have a link down below to my blog where it shows you on the same blog post as the free patterns. There'll be a link to how to print on fabric. So if you want to check that out. This is how I did the first one, because the first one I didn't show you this process. And I'm just trimming it. And then this fabric I've got here, kind of a linen-y type fabric, I can fray around the edges really easily. And then I'll add a piece of batting. I think I'm going to put one on this one as well. I wasn't going to, but I decided it's going to look cute here. I'll add a piece of batting to the back here, so I'm cutting batting for both my tags. I know they both say the same thing, but they're 2 different types of things, you know. So, and then if you're a gluer, you can glue that together. I'm going to sew around it off camera. Okay, so here's what that looks like. And then now we're on the wall hanging, so I'm going to add my 2 little roses. Again, I'm doing the 2 at the top kind of slanted, so they're, you know, glued in like a triangle. Add my little bow in between those 2, right up underneath. Just tuck it in there. And then I'm going to add my little fabric tag there. And then glue my little rose flower down. And then once I do that, that makes both of these cute eggs complete. Here we go, project number 9. For this project, supplies to start out with, this is one of those wood books, just a plain board from Dollar Tree. And then this is one of those 12-inch chunky slats. And yes, to the right, you're looking at a wood letter from Walmart. I promise it's going to be useful. It might seem weird, but not once you see it. I already have a piece kind of cut off from the wood slat, so I'm going to use that. And then I have just a couple, like a wood slice and another little wood piece I'm going to be using. And then this is a chunky, wonky heart and a little flower. These come from craftingwithkimber.com. I'll have the links down below in my description box. The first thing I want to do is just take my ruler, and I want to take this wood piece here and just kind of narrow it up at the top a little bit. I'm going to cut off my little wood slice there. And my letter U, I'm going to use the curved part as a handle. Okay, but you could use the other part, this here, for the spout, because yes, we're going to make a watering can, but I want my spout to be a little chunkier, so I'm going to use this wood piece instead. So I'm just cutting all my pieces here. I'm cutting my board down at the angle on both sides. You could leave this board just plain rectangle, not cut anything at all. And then if you just use the letter U for your pieces, you could, those wood letters are just kind of a paper type wood. Like you could probably cut them with a craft knife back and forth a couple of times and use that, where you don't even need a saw at all. And then of course, when I'm done with all my pieces, I'm going to go ahead and sand everything really nicely, round off my squared edges. I like to round those off, take the label off the back. And then here's my pieces ready to go. Now, my spout came off of a little bit longer piece of wood, right? So I saved that piece of wood, squared it off. I'm going to put this at the back at the bottom so it helps hold our watering can upright, because I think the spout in that might try to tip it forward. So I'm putting those two little wood slices together. It's going to go on the end of the spout. I kind of have a little fun thing for it. Now for the spout, you could just wood glue. It would work perfectly fine, but I wanted to add one of these wood dowels. So my husband is just going to drill from the very top of the spout all the way into where I've got it marked here, so that I can just put my wood dowel in those holes. This is what it looks like. Drilled all the way from the top. Easier to drill all the way from the top so you get one length drill. Okay, versus trying to do two, one at the bottom of the spout and one into the book. So just one all the way through. And then these are something my husband did. He saw it on YouTube. They're screws. So one end is a screw that he screwed into the wood before we screwed into the wood. And then the other he ground it down to like little nail points. So the screw's solid in the wood, and then the handle, I can just tap onto those little nail points as if I'm hammering it on. Interesting, but it does work. So I'm just wood gluing my little dowel in, and then I'm going to go ahead and wood glue the little stability piece on the back of the watering can. I don't know if this is needed or not, but I just felt like maybe because we're going to put that little wood heart on the front and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and clamp it on so it's nice, and firm and solid on there. But that little heart on the front and stuff might make it want to tip forward. And then I'm wood gluing my two wood pieces together, my wood slices, and clamping them. And then I'm taking some little bitty nails here into that top piece. I'm nailing them in. You can see here like this. I'm going to go all the way around in a circle, a couple of circles. One long nail I'm going to use so that I can use this. When I hammer it down, it'll be the same length as the other ones, but I can use this with a little wood glue to nail it into the top of that spout. And then of course it'll cover that hole there. And the reason for these nails is because I thought they would look cute, like the little metal holes where the water comes out, and just give it a little fun, decoration. So that's totally optional. So I'm wood gluing this on, and then I'll go ahead and hammer that longer nail down into position so it's the same height as the rest of them, and you don't even know we did that. Okay, just a fun decoration. I just thought it reminded me of the little metal holes where the water comes out of the spout. For a paint today, I'm using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth. I'm going to use a little bit of this mud paint brand. It's called Newport, and then a couple of these papers. These papers came from a little pack from Dollar Tree, and they're like plaid and polka dot of each one. I love them because the colors are so nice and mellow and country looking. And then some of this ribbon from my stash and a little bit of 18 gauge wire. The first thing I'm going to do is take that wonky chunky heart from craftingwithkimber.com. I trace around it. I want to use the front side, and then I'm coming about 1/8 of an inch in, and I'm redrawing that perimeter margin. I do this all the time. I know I explain it all the time, but we always have new viewers, right? And then once I draw that new margin, I'm going to cut that out. And what this does is just allows me, when I set it on the heart, to see a little bit of wood around the heart instead of covering the heart end to end. So just a fun little thing. And then I will take that off camera to my sewing machine. I'm going to actually sew on my paper. Now I'm adding some wood glue, right, around those little nail tips. And you could just totally wood glue this on, but my husband wanted to try this, and it actually works good. All right, and then I'm just going to kind of push it on as far as I can push it, and then I'm going to just take a little rubber mallet and then tap it all the way to rest in. So like I said, one end is a screw head and one end is like a nail head. So it was kind of fun. Anyway, so now I'm coming in with a nice country blue, painting my heart and my flower. Give a little bit of blue to go in with our scrapbook paper. And then I'm using that drop cloth to just kind of paint the center of our flower here. And then I'll go ahead and distress everything. So here is my paper all sewn around it. Now I'm taking the open end of my scissor blades. I scrape along the edges, give us a little bit of a roughened kind of rustic look. And now I'm just taking paint and I'm adding some little dots to the center of the flower. I'm going to glue the paper onto my wooden heart, and then I'm going to take that drop cloth paint mixed with water and a fan brush, tap the fan brush, get a few splatters on my heart and my flower, and then I'm taking that same drop cloth paint even further watered down because I want it to just kind of look like a wash where you can see a little bit of the grain of the wood still popping through, and then I will sand it, distress it off camera a little bit more even around the edges. But I didn't want it like a full complete paint. Here's what it looks like sanded. So it gives it nice rustic. I even kind of painted on the wood slices and everything, sand those off. Now I'm going to take that blue paint mixed with water and a fan brush, same process, and add some blue splatters across the front, across the back, because I like the back finished off. And then I'm taking a drill bit, the same diameter as the wire I'm going to use, and I'm going to drill 2 little holes, one on each end, right at the top of our watering can here. And then once that's done, I will go ahead and glue my heart down at the bottom where I want it, kind of near the handle hanging off. And then using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here, and I'm going to add just a little moss just around one side. I tried it behind the flower, but it was a little too much moss for me, but just a little on the outside, so it kind of has that earthy, organic look a little bit. And then I'm taking a nice, just long chunk of wire, the center of it, wrapping it around a large handle paintbrush, and then I'll pull that apart, kind of straighten out the ends. It's too much wire. I just did a big piece, and I'm going to do one of each end through the holes, and I will cut off the excess. All right, and then I'm taking rounded needle nose pliers, and I'm using that to make some twisties in the wire. And I was going to do it like this and leave it like this, but then I decided I pulled that wire out a little bit more and decided to bring it up and over the top and then around the wire at the top of that. So it just kind of, because it looked naked from the little curly cues on the front up to the wire. So I thought I'd kind of join them together to make it look more joined together. So that's what I'm doing there, just kind of wrapping it around that wire, and it'll kind of lock it in place and still give us our cute curly cues. All right, and then once that's done, I'm going to wrap my ribbon just around one end here and just make a little bow. And I was going to be done with this, but I'm like, it needs something else. So I've decided to take a little bit of the scrapbook paper, and what I'm going to do is just ran it through my printer. I printed off just Spring Blossoms word. I'll leave the font in the description box down below onto the scrapbook paper. Off camera, I'll sew around that scrapbook paper. And then I'm taking that blue paint and just painting both sides. This is a little cardboard tag. This is what my tag looks like sewn around it. I did one for the back as well. I'm gluing the back on here, just so if the back gets seen, which it would, and then going ahead and gluing the front on. And then I will just punch a little hole at the top after I roughen the edges with my scissor blades here. Got to keep that rustic look cohesive with the heart. Splatter it. Forgot I splattered it. Splatter it with some of the blue paint. And then I'm going to use one of these bulb pins through the tag and through the center of the bow, and that makes this project complete. How about now? Are you still with me? Add a flower emoji to your comment as we head into project number 10. For this project, I'm going to be using these fabrics. These top 3 come from Jubilee Fabrics. This is actually like a little curtain for a couple of dollars I found at a thrift store, but I like the pattern, so think about that kind of thing when you're in thrift stores. And then this is just a quilt I bought off Wayfair I've been cutting on, and then I have a free pattern for you. So the bottom here is a eggshell. You just cut it out, cut 2 of fabric, cut 2 of batting if you want a quilted look. The top, this is an egg. It's not the full egg. You're going to have to place it on the fold of your fabric. Okay, so you fold your fabric here. This would be the shape cut out, and you place that on the fold and cut that out. Okay, the link will be in the description box to my blog for these patterns. And you have a beak, a pocket, and a heart. All right, each of them cut your fabric and batting if you want. So I'm going to use, versus my egg, my fabric and 2 pieces of batting for the egg top. Okay, for the bottom, I decided I wanted a little thicker for some reason. I don't know why, but I cut 4 pieces of batting. You could cut 4, you could cut 2, you could cut none. It's up to you, okay? And then my 2 pieces of fabric. My nose, I actually went ahead and cut 2 pieces of fabric and then 2 pieces of batting, give it a little bit thicker. The heart, I did the same thing, 2 pieces of fabric, 2 pieces of batting, because I know it says like 1 piece of fabric. And in the pocket, same thing, okay? And then I also have here, this is a little, I'm going to use it like a patch. I just had a little extra piece of this fabric and I cut it out, so I'm going to use it like a little patch. You could cut out a little square. And in this little piece that I printed onto some fabric, I will have a link in my description box for the words and how to print onto fabric using your printer, okay? Also for this project, I'm using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue, and these crochet threads you can get at Walmart, okay? They're a couple dollars a skein. All right, so first thing we need to do is get our, if you're using batting, get our batting attached to our fabric pieces. We're gonna lay the egg, of course, inside with the, you'll have about a 1/2 inch on either side, the eggshell, okay? Just like this. Yeah, it's an egg coming out of an eggshell. Thought it was super cute. I saw the idea on Pinterest, so we're making it Lindified. What we want to do is get it together, but have an opening to stuff it like a pillow if we want. So right now what I'm doing, since I'm using 2 pieces of batting, is getting my batting glued together. All right, and then of course I'm going to glue it to my top fabric for my eggshell. Perfect, and then I'm going to get my, I'll do the same thing on the other eggshell, and then I'm going to get my batting 1 piece onto either side of the egg. Don't glue the eggs together yet, okay? Now what we want to do is I flip my eggshell over, flip my egg over, and we want to attach the bottom part of the egg just below the little triangle areas on the eggshell itself. We want these to now become 1 unit. So just a little bit of glue here, and then you can turn it back over on the other side and kind of peel the cracked part open and add a little more glue if you need to, okay? And then this I'm just going to lay together so I've got it exactly as the other one. Add my glue here and then get my eggshell on so everything's even, so my eggshell's all even. Now what I want to do is, your sewer, you can sew across this. I'm going to hand sew it, but only sew across the cracked area, okay, on both pieces for right now, okay? Right, so I've got some of that crochet thread. I've got a big needle here. Nice big long piece, because we're going to need a little bit of it, and I'm just going to start adding just some cute little straight country stitches. I'll have a link to my blog. You know, if you're a gluer, this is great to add some texture to it. You don't have to do this at all if you're a sewer and you don't want to use your sewing machine, but add texture like this. But if you've never sewed by hand or anything, link to my blog, and there'll be a little video there that says how to sew some basic stitches. And basically I'm just going in and out and creating some little straight stitches, as you see here, probably about a little 1/4 inch of space in between. I'll go all the way across on both of these off camera, and here they are done. Don't want to waste your time sitting there watching me do that. You can see from the back side, that will help also hold the egg in place, not only just glue. And again, we want to now leave it open for stuffing, so that's why we put those 2 pieces together, okay? So the glue and the stitching helps. Now we're going to do the little beak and some eyes. We're only working on 1 piece of your egg and shell, okay? Glue your nose together if you got batting and all that. So I'm gluing all my batting together here and gluing my front and back of my nose. Okay, get it into position. I'm going to glue it down. You can see the other half of our eggs off to the side. I'm only working on 1 egg here, and then I'm going to use that thread again, and I'm just going to come in from the back side to the front, and then from the front to the back. Of course, you got to go back and forth, and I'm going to add just some little straight stitches again all the way around the beak. Okay, I just think it gives it something super cute. If you're a sewer and you want to sew the beak on, go right ahead. But I just thought the country stitches are different. I'm not going to my sewing machine on this, so it'll be fun. Now, I'm still hooked here. You can see I knotted it and I'm still hooked because we need to now make some eyes. Really easy. We're just going to make a couple little lines. So I'm coming right up above where I want it, from the back to the front, and then I'm going to go right back from the front to the back, kind of like a little slanted line, you know, for 1 eye, and then I'll come over to the other eye and I'll do the same thing. That's cute. And then I decided it just needed to be a little bit more bold, so I'm going right back over the same stitches here to make the eyes a little bit darker, okay? You don't have to do this. I just thought my thread isn't a real thick one, so I thought twice would be great. And then I'm just tie it off in the back. Now we can go ahead and cut our thread off. Okay? Just like that. I just love adding these country stitches. I think it's fun. And now what I'm doing is I'm just getting my pocket together, okay? I'm just getting my batting glued to my fabric pieces. Again, you could just use one fabric, one piece of batting, but I want all my pieces to just look a little bit thicker. So I'm gluing that together. Get our pocket going here. And then of course I'll glue the heart together. Perfect. And then of course I'm going to glue my little tag together. And I know it says Spring Cottage, but it's okay. In my brain, I'll tell you in a minute. So now in my pocket, there's a reason for it. It works. It was my last little tag left I had printed off on the fabric. I'm like, I'm going to use it, but it works because I'll explain the story. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some stitches just across the top of the pocket only, because I want this to actually be a pocket, right? So just across the top only. Now, while the thread's still on there, I'm going to go ahead and sew my little patch on. If you're not going to sew the patch on, you're just gluing things together. Obviously, you're not worrying about any of this detail on the pocket, but since my thread's already there, I'm sewing my patch on, because once we, attach our pocket to the eggshell, it's going to be too difficult to, get that patch on there. So if you're a gluer, go ahead and glue around the perimeter to make your pocket, right? I'm going to go ahead and continue on. I've got a new piece of thread on my needle here. Again, we're only using 1/2 of our egg and shell, right? And I'm going to finish my little stitching detail all the way around that perimeter, okay? All right, so here everything is ready. I've got my little pocket detail. I've got my back ready to go. Now I'm going to put the two pieces together. Worry about our little heart and tag in a minute. So we've got our cute little chicken and our egg, but it's looking a little flat. I want to add a little bit of shadowing dimension to it. So what I'm going to do is I've just got my Distress Oxide from Ranger. It's called Walnut Stain. You can get these in scrapbooking sections. Any local, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, and I'm just taking my little ink dauber, and as you can see, I'm just adding ink around the perimeter of like the eggshell here. See how that shadowing kind of makes the piece pop up? I'm going to add it around the pocket, on the patch a little bit as well. It just makes each piece look a little more individual. Going to add it onto the beak. Just like if you're painting something, you want to add a little shadowing around it. That's what we're doing here with a little bit of ink, okay? And it will dry permanently. And I'm going even right up above our little cracked part. I'm going to go around the eyes a little bit as well. Of course, around the perimeter of the egg, just to make things pop up. I'll do the same thing on the back side. Once that's done, now it's time to glue, or if you're doing it by machine, to get your two pieces together, okay? So I'm just doing a nice kind of thick line of glue at the top of the egg, and then around the bottom. But as I go around the bottom, I'm leaving, did you see I glued in and I skipped about a little 4-inch spot there, and I'm coming up around the other side, because remember, we want to stuff this like a little pillow, if you want to stuff it like a pillow. But we want enough glue that it's going to, kind of hold this thing together while we stuff it, and then we come in with the stitches. Okay, so I've got it all together. Opening is for stuffing here. Now I'm going to come in with the stitches at the top. I'm going to use this cream crochet thread. Again, these are Walmart, and make my little stitches. Okay, I'll do a couple here, but then I'll just do the rest off camera, because it's all the same stitch, nothing fancy here. I started my knot like in between the two layers of fabric, and then add a little glue there so that the knot's hidden. And then I will come through and add the little stitches. It's going to be a little tough because I'm going through layers of fabric and probably some glue where I glued it together. Okay, but if you're just gluing this, you want to make sure you have ample amount of glue, which I should have finished my thought earlier. I kind of went on to something else, so that when you stuff it, it doesn't come right back apart. You can use hot glue for this if you wanted, or the Fabri-Tac glue I find works great. So with a little editing magic, I've got mine already sewn around the edges here, and I went ahead and did it on my heart as well here off camera, and around my little Spring Cottage tag. So I know it's a Spring Cottage and we got an egg, but here's the story, and it's going to make the tag work, right? So Spring Cottage, you're at your cottage, you got a beautiful lake in front of you, there's little ducks floating on the water, you got maybe a little hatchery of cute little chicks running around next to the water, right? Spring Cottage. There's the story. Now the tag works, doesn't it? All right, once you got everything ready to go ahead and stuff everything, right? Got it stuffed as full as you want it. And now I'm going to come in and just finish this off with the sewing. I've started in between the fabrics again to put a little knot in between to hide that knot. And then I'm going to come around and just do the stitches all the way around the bottom part of our little cracked egg. editing magic here. I'm coming near the end. I think the stitches just give it a little something. I just like it. And then when I end that last stitch, I'm going to go ahead as I come to the back side here, I'm going to actually start to pull through the front a little bit, but only one layer of the fabric, so I can knot it off between the layers here. Make a little knot, tie off or cut off the excess, add a little glue. Hides the knot, keeps everything together. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue my heart inside the pocket, the angle I want it. I'm going to glue my little tag on over our patch, because now it's a spring cottage. Glue a little twine bow here. Thought it would need a little something more, and a cute little wood button, and that makes this project complete. We're almost there. Project number 11. For this project, I'm using just some vintage kind of flower trim, some more black crochet thread, a couple of beads for eyes. Yep, we're making another cute little critter. And this is actually a skirt I found at a thrift store for a couple of dollars. Loved the texture on it, but you could use like batting. We're going to use batting anyway, but it's the same kind of texture as batting, but just a little bit more textury. I think I just made up a word. Anyway, some batting. This is a placemat I found at a thrift store, and then this is some fabric. I believe both of these came from Hobby Lobby. And in another pattern for you, a printable. This is a bunny. You'll just cut it out, tape it together at the dash lines, and cut it out. It says 2 of fabric, a couple of batting, and then I've got a little nose, a heart, and a patch. But what I decided to do is I actually wanted to use the pocket and the heart again off of the egg. But you've got some options here. You could go either way. So I've got my 2 main pieces of fabric cut out and 2 pieces of batting. You all know how I operate. I've got 1 pocket because it's pretty thick and 2 pieces of batting. 2 for the heart and a couple pieces of batting here. And then 2 fabric and 2 pieces batting for the nose. Again, you could do 1 of each. And then what we're going to do first is just lay our batting, if you're using batting, onto our bunny shape here. If you're a gluer, glue your batting onto each bunny piece, okay? I'm going to go ahead and just kind of spot glue it down. I am going to use my sewing machine on this, but just doing it this way just helps hold the batting in place, and I don't have to really pin it. So I'm just kind of spot gluing it down. If you're a gluer, you're going to glue it down really well, okay? All right. And now I'm going to go ahead and get my other pieces ready. If you're a gluer, you're going to glue all your batting and pocket stuff together. Really good. I'm just going to spot glue it here again just to hold it in place as I take it to the sewing machine. Just a little line of glue there. Same with the heart, but if you're a gluer, glue it all together really well. I had 1 piece of batting here, but off camera I end up adding another piece because I wanted my heart a little bit thicker like on our last project. And then, of course, spot gluing the little nose together. 2 pieces of batting. You could just do 1 piece of fabric, 1 piece of batting. Once that's done, if you're a gluer, go ahead and glue your nose on, and then we're going to move into the pocket. Your pocket we're going to do the same way as last time, right? You can go around the edge if you're a gluer and glue that on. Then you glue your heart inside of your pocket, just like the last one. If you're a sewer, you can sew your nose onto 1 piece of your bunny, 1/2 of your bunny, okay? But what I want to do is I'm going to sew around my nose and then glue it on, and then my pocket, I'm going to go ahead and sew the top, and then since that's such a thick fabric, because it's a placemat, I will sew the bottom onto the bunny. But so here I am sewing the nose. I don't know why I wanted to do it that way, I just did. And then I'm just sewing across the pocket only, top of the pocket, and then here I am sewing around the heart to give it that little more detail. Okay, and now I'm taking the pocket to just the top part of the bunny, not the bottom, and sewing around that perimeter. Again, if you're a gluer, you'll just glue that on. And then I'm going to glue my heart into the pocket. You could sew your heart onto that fabric and everything as well. And now if you're a gluer, I'm taking some of that crochet thread and I want to add that little thing on the bunnies that they usually have, kind of like the mouth. just a little, 1-inch chunk, and you glue it right below the nose. I'm going to leave that little piece there. You just glue that down. I'm going to use my needle and crochet thread and just kind of come out where I want the top of that nose to be, because I want it that length. It's just kind of acting as my guide, and I'm sewing that on. But basically, if you're a gluer, you're just going to glue the little piece on. And then my nose will kind of go right at the top. All right. First thing though, because my yarn is still attached, right, I'm going to see where I want my eyes on, right above my nose. So I'm adding my beads to the front. I come from the back, add my bead, and then bring my needle back through the back of that fabric. Here I'm coming from the back, add my bead, and then come right back through the back of it, right close to that bead, and get those in place. Perfect. And then I can go ahead and knot it off and cut off the excess. Wonderful. And now I can go ahead and glue my nose on. And when I glue this on, I actually kind of press my nail and indent it around where I sewed it, and it kind of helps make it puffy. Now I'm doing the whiskers. You could totally just glue them on, but what I want to do is, as you can see, I'm coming from the front to the back with my needle right near the nose. I'm leaving about 4 inches of thread hang out, and then I'm going to come from the back side right close to where I came out. Not the same hole, but right close to it. And I'm going to bring that needle from the back to the front. All right, and then I'm going to cut off the excess, just like that. I'm going to do it again. I'll just show this one side. I'm going to go right close to the nose, pull the needle from the front to the back, leave about 4 inches of string hanging, go right close to it from the back to the front, pull that needle all the way through, and then cut off the excess. All right, we're going to leave those alone for a minute. You can see down below my whiskers are up and out of the way. I'm using some of that Distress ink in Worn lipstick, and I'm just using a little dauber here, and I'm making some cute little pink cheeks. You could use some blush or something like that if you wanted, watered down paint, something like that. Okay, once I got those where I like it, now I'm taking each of those pieces of string, and I actually tie 3 knots. I show 2 here, but then I come back in later and do 1 more knot. Okay, just like that. So it'll give us a little bit of definition at the base on the fabric, right? It gives us a little bit of definition of those whiskers coming out. Just adds a little bit of detail is all. Okay, but again, I do 3 knots. I kind of liked how 3 knots raised it a little bit higher. I'll do it on all 4 of these. Okay, you might have to fiddle with the thread a little bit so they, once you tie them in a knot, they're not split apart. You know what I mean? That they're close together. Is that understandable? When you tie a knot, they kind of spread out the tails. And then what I'm going to do is glue each of these in the direction I want them to be, the whiskers down, but I'm making sure that I stay about 1 inch away from the edge because I'm going to sew the bunny together, right? I want to make sure that I don't glue all the way to the edge because you don't want to sew over your whiskers. If you're a gluer, that part doesn't matter, but just glue them how you want them designed to be. We want to get our bunny together. If you're a gluer, you're going to go all the way around the perimeter of your back bunny and leave a little spot open on the front where you can stuff it. And then once you stuff it, then you can glue it closed. If you're a sewer, you're going to do the same process, but watch where your whiskers are. Make sure you pull them up out of the way so you don't sew over the top of your whiskers. Again, then once you do that, you can stuff it and sew your opening closed. So I'll just show a little bit of sewing here. I think this one turned out really, really cute. I kind of like it. Again, I saw an idea on Pinterest, but there was like 3 different bunnies that I liked. So I took a little bit of each bunny and then I kind of lindified it and made my own thing. And I've got about, for those of you that are sewers, probably about a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, and see how I'm pulling the whiskers up out of the way so I don't sew over the top. And if you're a gluer and you want to add the cute little stitches like we just did on the little chickie and the egg, you could totally do that. All right, so it's all stuffed and I sewed across it. I was almost going to be done. I'm like, and I wasn't going to do this actually, but I thought I need a little tail on the back. So I've got a 4-inch diameter circle here. I've got a regular needle and thread here, and I'm just going to go around the edge doing a little pleating action to get my thread to go around it. Again, if you're a beginner in doing this, I will have a link to my blog where I talked about the link earlier on the last project, basic sewing. This will be in there to show you how to do it. So you just pleat it back and forth on your needle, and then where your knot is, you pull that out a little bit so you've got 2 long strings, stuff it, and then pull those 2 long strings together to close your opening. It's not going to get all the way closed, but it'll be closed enough. And then you can tie that off so it doesn't, come unraveled, of course. Get it as tight as you can, the opening as small as possible. And then, cut off your excess threads. I usually knot about 4 or 5 times here. And then you can glue it on if you want. Off camera, I'm just going to take that same needle and thread and just stitch it on, okay? So here it is, already done, really cute. Looks much better. He's got a tail. I'm going to take some of that cute flower trim and I'm just going to glue it across the top of the pocket. And then I've got some of this fabric. I ripped a big long piece. I think it's 2 inches by about 4 inches, but I decided it was really long, so I'm taking about 1 inch off. Same fabric as I did for the heart, and I'm just going to crinkle it together in the middle and just tie a little bow like this. Really, really easy. And then I'm going to glue that on one of the ears. And then I'm going to add detail like I did the little chickie again. I'm going to add a little twine in a bow. And then a cute little button. And that makes this project complete. You made it! Yay! Project number 12. Again, a lot of fabrics here, but you don't have to have this many. So I've got the back fabric, which is just a quilt I've been cutting up, some muslin fabric from Walmart, these other, and some batting, of course. You know I'm bringing in the batting for a quilted look. And then a bunch of these, like these pink colored fabrics. Some are by the yard, some are those fat quarters, and this green, all from Walmart. And then this is just a plaid from Jubilee Fabrics. I didn't know if I wanted to use it. In the end, I don't use it anyway. I do have a free printable for you, the pattern for this project. Now, this is a half of a pattern, okay? So you'll cut it out. You're going to tape it together, and then you're going to place it on the fold of your fabric. I'll show you here. So you fold your fabric in half. You have a fold. You're going to place it down. You've cut it out, right? Taped it up. And then you're going to cut it like this. And then when you open your fabric, it's like this. You're going to cut 2 of those. And then I have a third piece to our printable here. It's a bunch of different flowers. You may only want to use the rolled rose, but I wanted to give you some different options of flowers you could use. So the rolled rose is one, the one in the upper corner is one, this is one, and then 2 different kind of leaves. I'm going to show you how to make everything so you have lots of choices to make what you want, okay? So for my top layer, I've used the quilted fabric, 2 pieces and 2 pieces of batting, okay? And then I wanted kind of a silhouette around it. So I did another layer on the bottom with the muslin, 2 pieces of fabric, right? And 2 pieces of batting. So what I did is use my pattern piece. I'll just simulate with the fabric here. And then I cut out about a 1/2 inch around that pattern piece to give us our silhouette piece. Now, you can do this as a pillow, which is what I'm going to do, or hang a really pretty like crochet up the top and make it like a wall hanging. Anything will work fine. So I have all my pieces cut out. I'm going to do 3 rolled roses here for sure. I've got this piece and the piece down below for one other flower. And I did 2 pieces of each of all my fabrics because it's really thin fabric from Walmart. And then I've got all my pieces cut for my other flower. My leaves, I cut 1 of each and 1 piece of batting, and then these are the other leaves I cut out, okay? So if you're a gluer, you can go ahead, and you're using batting, you can go ahead and this top layer, if you do it like I'm doing it, glue all those pieces together with your batting, okay? Or if you just want like just fabric on top, go ahead and glue that down to your top layer of your silhouette, okay? I'm going to sew around it, okay, and then glue it on, all right? Again, doing it like a pillow. So if you're a gluer and you use batting in the middle, go ahead and glue your 2 pieces of batting to each of your pieces silhouette, but don't glue those 2 pieces together. You're just gluing your batting to each side of your fabric, okay? I'm going to spot glue my top cross, so to speak, all together. Again, 2 layers of fabric, 2 layers of batting, and then I'm gluing each batting to each side of my fabric of my silhouette cross on the lower piece. And then here I am and I hope that was all understandable as I say it. I'm like, did I say it right? And then here I am just, of course, sewing my top cross together. Now you're asking, why didn't you just sew it to the silhouette? Because I want it on top and then glue it down so it looks a little bit more poofier to me. If you sew it all together, it's really going to scrunch it down, and I wanted it more poofy. All right, so that's just my reasoning for it. You can certainly sew it all down together. You could hand stitch it together again to give it a little bit more of a country look, however you want to do it. And this cross we're sewing completely together. This is what it looks like. All right, and now I'm just taking my batting pieces and gluing it to each piece of my leaf. Again, if you just cut one fabric a leaf, you can just cut one batting, and I'm going to sew down the center of each of them. But again, my fabric's kind of thin, so I'm sandwiching a batting between two pieces of fabric, and I'll do all the rest off camera and sew it down off camera. Here's what it looks like. And now I want to add a little more definition. So I've got some inks, scrapbooking inks that match the fabrics I'm going to be using here. And I'm just going to ink around the edges of all my pieces. So if you can see here on camera on the left, how it just added a little bit of color and dimension versus the one on the right. So I'm going to do it front and back on all my pieces here, and I'll do it on my flower petals and other leaves and everything that's over there to the right. Okay, everything is ready to go. This leaf, I'm going to just sew down the center of it. I'm not going to add any batting. I'll do that off camera. All right. And now we've done the rolled rose before, but I'm going to show you again. So this is a 5-inch diameter circle. You can go as thick or as thin as you want, and you're just going to cut it all the way down, starting very thin, getting wider as you go all the way down to the center, leaving just, a little 1-inch little kind of circle left there to glue everything to. Now it's kind of all rolled back up into its little swirl there, and I'm just inking it, and I'll ink it front and back. Since I used two fabrics, I went ahead off camera and kind of glued those fabrics together. All right, it just adds a little dimension here with the inking. You're going to take some tweezers, all right, and you're going to make sure this one edge is straight, the edge toward the handle of the tweezers, as much as possible. The top, you're going to see it kind of look a little wonky, but the top, try to keep it as you wind it kind of even at the bottom toward the handle. See how the top, you can kind of see the layers, but the bottom's looking kind of even. Much as you can. It's not going to make a big difference if it's off a little bit. And then lay it on that bottom little circle you have left, and then begin to kind of unravel your rose a little bit. All right, you can make it as loose or as tight as you want. And what I do is kind of slide it off the table there to keep it together. Add glue all into that center cut, and especially, in the middle, making sure I got that little middle section there. And I lay that piece over that and then smush it down, and this is what you come up with. All right, I've got 3 done. Let's move on to our next flower. You're going to take that little rectangle, and you're going to make little slits down about 2 1/2-inch, 1/4-inch. You're not going to cut it all the way down to the end, just little slits. Again, I'm just showing different varieties so you can choose what you want. And then you're going to glue it and roll it all up together. Okay, just like that. This is going to be our little flower stamen. All right, my bottom piece, the flower itself, which is the little 4-petal flower coming up, I went ahead and sewed around it. You don't have to. It's just, optional. And I'm going to cut about a 1/2-inch slit more in the center, because what we want to do is layer one petal over the other like this. Nice and easy. I tried to choose easy flowers too. So you add a little glue on one end on the back side like this, and you'll layer over the petal in the front of it. Okay, and when you're done, you're going to have a little cup flower, right? And then I'm going to cut that stamen down a little bit. It's a little tall. I'm going to add a little glue and place it in the center of that, and this is what we end up with. Nice and easy. It'll look cute when it's all together, promise. Next flower, you have 1 circle and 9 to 12 little heart-shaped petals. All right, however many you want. I'm taking that circle and I'm cutting it into kind of like a shell shape. You don't have to, but it's easier for me to roll it, because you basically are just going to glue it and roll it up in the center. I'm using some tweezers to help me to make a little flower stamen. That's all you're doing. So you don't have to cut it if you don't want to, but for me it was easier. And I've got all my petals pre-glued at the bottom, and you're just going to take one petal and wrap it around that flower stamen. All right, now the open end where it's not wrapped, you're going to add the other petal, and you're going to close that end up. And I'm pinching it at the bottom as I go. And then you're going to alternate your petals in between the spaces of the petals you just glued. And you're going to continue in that fashion all the way around, adding your petals. And it's just going to give us a nice little open rose. You don't have to pinch it at the bottom, but I am, because I'm going to slide it in under those rolled roses just to give us a little dimension. So this is what it looks like, all nice and pinched up, open, just something different. Now these, I didn't end up using them, but I wanted to give you an option. I've pre-added some glue into the points of the petals here. A little thin piece of like 22 gauge wire, and I'm going to wrap that first leaf right at the top. Then I'm going to take that second leaf and wrap it right at the opposite end of that first leaf. And I'm going to go back and forth wrapping each leaf opposite of the other leaf. And so you kind of end up with like a little leaf bouquet here. So I hope that's understandable. Now you just kind of decide where you want your flowers and stuff. You can see how I'm arranging them here. I ended up, as I thought, not going with the checkered leaves. I decided I didn't like the color. I'm using 4 of the green leaves and all 3 rolled roses. I liked that look best. And then I'm just going to use the other 2 roses we made. And I'm not going to use the little leaf stem or anything, but I wanted to show you all how to make it, of course. You're welcome to use the design how I laid it out. And of course, do it how you want it. Now I'm taking our open rose. This is why I pinched it, so I can add a little glue and glue it right underneath sideways under that rolled rose. Then I'm going to take our little cup rose, as I'm going to call it, glue it up here at the top. And this is all I'm going to do. I love how it turned out. Now, these are art stones. We use them in the scrapbooking world. They're art ingredient art stones. I'll have a link down below. You can find them. I believe you can find them in store at Michael's, but you definitely can order them. All right. They look like little stones, but they have no weight to them whatsoever. And this is just optional. It's just to provide texture. You can use lots of mixed media glues out there, but I'm just going to do my Fabri-Tac glue. And as you can see, where I glue it, I pour a bunch on in the spot. It's easiest to do it that way. It's not going to look like that when it's done. It's just easier to kind of dump them on and, that way, and then kind of press them there, and then what sticks will stick. And I add it everywhere onto flowers, leaves, whatever. Then I can just turn it over and dump off the excess. Now we're going to go to the bottom of our cross. If you're a gluer, you're going to go in between the fabrics around the edges, whether or not using batting, gluing it all the way around, but leave a spot for stuffing. If you're a sewer, you can do the same thing, just like we did on our first project. I want to add a little bit of detailing with my crochet thread, a needle, and a blanket stitch. I'm going to show doing the process a little bit, but I'm not going to particularly explain it, because in the description box, that link to my blog with all those PDFs and PNGs and pattern is going to be a link to a video on basic sewing stitches, and at the end of that video teaches this process in a nice slower pace for you. So I'm going to do this all the way around, leaving an opening for stuffing, right? So here it is, done and ready to go. It looks really cute. It's going to give us that little bit of texture. You can do just straight stitches around. You don't have to do this blanket stitch. I've got my needle still on my thread, because once I stuff it here as full as I want it, I've got to, close that opening, of course, finishing off with that blanket stitch. But yes, straight stitches around it would look super cute. All right, so here it is all the way done. And then the last thing we need to do is just glue our portion on top. Now, whether you're a gluer or a sewer, I have lines to go by. I'm making sure that I don't add any glue beyond the line that I sewed. So I'm basically leaving a 1/2 inch border there. That way, when I squish it down, and I can squish it down around those sew lines, it'll allow that border to kind of pop up and, just make it look like we sewed it onto that silhouette and give us a nice quilty look. Once I do that, I know those stones kind of give it some fun texture, huh? That makes this project complete. So I hope you enjoyed watching a rerun of 12 of my favorite spring projects from last year. I always like to watch these videos, because then I go back and go, oh my gosh, I forgot about that one. And now you've got time to make it, because, we're just heading into spring, although we're not quite there yet. So plenty of time to get your to-do list done. If you liked all these projects, leave me a comment down below. And if you can remember, tell me a couple of your favorites that you didn't get done last year. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you walked in here for the first time, you're just checking things out, you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another project from me. Now, before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. There are 2 things to consider when it comes to prayer. Number 1, have the confidence before the Lord to voice your prayers. It's not that He doesn't know what you need. He knows everything, but by letting your requests come from your heart and be made known to Him, it allows your faith to grow stronger. And also, don't think that God doesn't have time for you because there's more important things going on in the world. That's exactly what the enemy wants you to think. He will do anything to keep you from a relationship with God and keep you silent. Don't let the enemy have this win. Talk to God. Pray with God. Okay? Number 2, waiting for the Lord and hoping that his answer for your prayer comes quickly can often feel like an eternity. Waiting can also make you feel like your hope is falling, and sometimes when your hope feels like it's falling, it can get difficult to breathe. But did you know there's actually a relationship that takes place between waiting and hope? Waiting brings about an expectation, and this expectation gives you hope, and this hope gives your faith promise. A promise that comes directly from the Lord. It's a promise that Jesus does hear you. It's a promise that Jesus does love you. It's a promise that God always has time for you. It's a promise that God always has your best interest at heart, no matter what is happening in the world today. And he does want to hear from you. So talk with him. Let your voice be heard. And even though waiting may feel like it's the longest time of your life, take a slow, deep breath and wait for him with all your strength. Keep your hope in him, because his promise is to never leave you alone to fight your own battles. He will always be with you. In the Bible, the book of Psalms, chapter 130, verses 5 and 6, I wait for the Lord. My whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord more than the watchmen wait for the morning, more than the watchmen wait for the morning. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.